Spent 4 years in the Coast Guard. I was stationed on a 311-foot weather cutter. Then I was on the only cargo ship the Coast Guard had. That was the Kukui. And my last station was Point Glass, an 82-foot patrol boat, home port, Gig Harbor, Washington. The way it started out was I was at work one day, and my left hand, I couldn't tell where my left hand was. And so my left hand, I controlled the rudders of the boat. You have rudder on both ends of a ferry. And so I'd have to look down to make sure my hand was where it was supposed to be. I was diagnosed in '97, but I'm pretty sure I had it way before that.
People with MS lose mobility because, number one, because of weakness from the demyelination. Another cause is fatigue, either fatigue of feeling tired or also neurologic fatigue, where their endurance is much less by the end of the day.
Weakness, spasticity, changes in sensation, balance issues, those can all really impact one's mobility.
When Jim and I met, he was able to function at a much higher level. And since we've been married, we got married in 2011, he's had a really steep decline in his symptoms of MS.
My most troubling symptoms are my legs and my hands. If you handed me something that was precious, I would not want to hold it because I would be fearful of dropping it. And my legs, I can't always trust them. They deceive me on occasion.
He'd go down, and so, I'd try to lift him, and I've injured myself many times trying to lift him. That's before we had tools.
Really, the most basic that everyone sees is what we call a single point cane, which is really just a stick. And there's lots of variations on that. And that is a very powerful device in multiple sclerosis because it can help people who have mild balance issues continue to walk for a long time. Next up are braces that go on the feet. Having a foot drop is very common with multiple sclerosis. After that, it would be a walker, and then you get up to a manual wheelchair, and then to a power wheelchair.
I think for any individual, walking is a primary means of being independent. It's an efficient means of getting around, and when you start to lose that ability and you start to rely on assistive devices, you've lost a huge sense of independence.
I'd usually use a store that had carts for their customers, and tried to get as close as I could to those carts, or at least a basket that I could walk with. Went to a cane, and eventually went to forearm crutches. And all this time I'm trying to hide what I really have going on with me, because someday I'm going to wake up and it's not going to be, except that day doesn't come.
A decision was made for Jim to go into the power chair because of his declining physical abilities. And, he was having, I think, more frequent falls and just couldn't go from point A to point B for any distance whatsoever. And it just wasn't safe for him anymore to be, with a seated walker or whatever. And I didn't have the strength to push him in a regular wheelchair. So I think the decision was made in conjunction with the occupational therapy and his rehab team at the VA.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Virginia. An evaluation for a power mobility device is at least a 90-minute evaluation with the power mobility specialist. Well, they'll bring you in and sit you down, and they're going to ask you, what are your goals? Where do you need to go in the community? Tell me about your home. Tell me about your car. All of these things play into the device that's best for you.
I think power mobility can be a hard step to take. Some veterans who have been living with MS for a long time are very eager to get to that point. Power mobility can be freedom. For someone whose world got a lot smaller, it can provide them the ability to go be out in the world. But it's still a scary step. It brings your illness front and center.
Some people do make assumptions about Jim's abilities because he's in a power chair. They will assume that because he's physically disabled, that he's mentally disabled as well. And so we'll find that, they may address me if I'm with him instead of talking to him. And he seems to be invisible in crowds.
Something that's interesting about this particular chair is that it'll raise up to 14 inches higher than where I'm at right now. And so say I'm going through a crowd of people, if I go through or try to when I'm down low, well then I'm just, like a rock that you gotta walk around. Whereas if I raise the chair up, then all of a sudden I'm somebody. And people will treat me like a person rather than an object.
When someone chooses or is able to use a manual chair or a power chair, it assists their mobility exponentially. It also helps their independence exponentially. If someone's in a power wheelchair, they're able to go out further in their community than they may be able to in a manual chair, or they may not fatigue as easy if they're trying to ambulate. So once someone's able to accept that the chair can actually help them be more independent, I believe it really improves their quality of life.
The first time I got into a power chair was a big thrill because I'd been pretty restricted in the past, and all of a sudden I have freedom, and I have 2 batteries, and I can go as far as those 2 batteries will take me. So yeah, it was a big deal. Independence is a big deal.
The main thing that I think about when I hear that someone's going to have a power mobility device or really any kind of assistive device is whether or not their home is accessible so that the device can actually get into their home.
I wanted him to be able to get into, every room of the house. And so we had a contractor come in before we moved in and widen as many doorways as possible.
Good morning.
Morning.
We had to knock out a few walls so that it was easier for him to get around. We could see the potential to put a ramp downstairs so that Jim could get in and out of the downstairs. We then had an occupational therapist from the VA come out and do an assessment.
When I arrive at a veteran's home, the evaluation starts immediately. I want to see what is it like to go from the car to the front door.
Hello. Hi, Virginia. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. I've brought Denise along.
Oh, hi, Denise.
Hello.
Once inside the home, there's obvious things like stairs I want to look at. What is the kitchen like? How accessible is the bathroom?
Do you mind walking me through a little bit about some of the modifications that you guys have done to your bathroom?
If an individual can't take a power chair into their bathroom, that makes their tub inaccessible, that makes their toilet inaccessible.
She recommended that we have the overhead track system put in, and that has been a godsend.
I'm lucky enough to have a overhead lift that starts out in the far corner of the bedroom. The track goes across the bed and turns and goes into the bathroom, to the toilet, and into the shower.
And so it allows Jim to live here in our home, which I think is the ideal place for him to be. I couldn't do it without the lift.
I don't know what this is. Right here.
That's gonna still be.
I would say that power wheelchairs really give back to the veteran what the disease has taken away.
It gives you a freedom and an ability to push past your MS and participate in life, sometimes when MS is limiting you.
We would not have the full life that we have without the lift and the power chair. It's the key to him having a good life and living a full life.
They're beauties, lots of them.